Being American means, above all else, to be free. Americans are blessed with countless rights, including suffrage, freedom of speech, and the right to bear arms.
The right to own weapons and to form a militia is one of the principles that separates the United States from the rest of the world.
The Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution states that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
Essentially, the amendment permits and encourages the existence of a militia and gives citizens the right to own weapons.
British rule over the colonies created the need for these rights as, at times, it represented the dangerous potential of allowing a governing force to confiscate arms.
This danger was exemplified by the very spark of the Revolutionary War. In 1775, British commander Thomas Gage gathered 700 troops and traveled to Concord, Massachusetts, where he planned to crack down on the stockpiling of weapons and gunpowder.
The colonists in Concord were notified of Gage's plan and were able to unify and eventually fight the British troops. In response to a potential seizure of arms, rebels in Concord engaged in the first conflict of what came to be the Revolutionary War.
The revolution that resulted in America's founding was started on the basis of the right to bear arms.
The amendment also mentions a militia, a concept that many founding fathers found to be of great importance. In the Federalist Papers, a collection of essays intended to promote the ratification of the Constitution, Alexander Hamilton stated that a well-regulated militia is the most natural defense of a free country.
Hamilton and his allies made up a large amount of America's founding fathers. Their unwavering support of the militia carried into the Constitutional Convention and ultimately resulted in the ratification of the Second Amendment.
Hamilton was not the only founding politician in favor of the Second Amendment. When he proposed 20 amendments on June 8, 1789, James Madison stated that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, a well-armed and well-regulated militia being the best security of a free country, but no person religiously scrupulous of bearing arms shall be compelled, no render military service in person. These words were altered several times and eventually became the Second Amendment.
While conflict between Federalists and Anti-Federalists was a prevalent theme of the Constitutional Convention, ratification of the Second Amendment came with little debate.
Having just engaged in a rebellion, the delegates saw arms and the concept of a militia as an important issue to include in the Constitution. They knew that a disarmament of the United States' citizens would result in tyranny. Madison's words were edited, and following Virginia's vote, the amendment was ratified on December 15, 1791.
Many important figures contributed to the founding of the United States and its legal structure, and almost all of them agreed that the right to bear arms and form a militia was fundamental to the success of a country.
For the majority of its existence, the rights of the Second Amendment were widely accepted. But in modern America, conflicting interpretations of the amendment have led to fierce debate. Whether or not the amendment protects solely a militia or the individual, as well as the extent of the weapon that is deemed legal by the amendment, has now been in question for years.
Politicians and regular citizens alike have tried to denounce the rights of gun ownership. The 1939 case, U.S. v. Miller, was the first legal debate on the amendment. The case ruled that citizens do not have the right to own certain military-grade weapons.
Since then, the push to minimize or even repeal the Second Amendment has grown stronger. Politicians cite gun-related crimes as an excuse to repeal existing gun laws. Many also disagree on the concept of the militia, stating that the equivalent of the 18th century militia is the National Guard, nothing more.
Being American means being free, and the founders of the United States were in agreement that bearing arms and being able to form a militia are among the essential freedoms granted to United States citizens. The free America ideal is defended by politicians and regular citizens. Sheriff David Clark does well in the way of supporting the Second Amendment.
To uphold and defend the Constitution. And the Constitution, ladies and gentlemen, does not come a la carte. It's all-inclusive.
Yes!
It grants rights to the citizens, inalienable rights endowed by the Creator, not granted by inclusion in some group or cause.
Author Kurt Schlichter supports the same cause, but explains it in a more aggressive manner.
Bring a lot to take them. We are not asking for our rights because that presumes that someone else gives them to us. We were born with our rights. Now, whether you believe those rights were endowed by our Creator or you're a humanist who just believes that every human being has them, you have the right to speak freely. You have the right to write what you want, to assemble, to petition your government for the redress of grievances. You have the right to practice your religion as you see fit and without interference, and you have the right to keep and bear arms.
The Founding Fathers were able to carefully plan out and form man's greatest creation, the United States of America. Early politicians were almost all in favor of the rights of the Second Amendment. They witnessed a tyrannical government and vowed to never let such an evil infiltrate their conception. Since America's founding, gun rights have been among the freedoms that unify the country, protecting citizens from a tyrannical government or any other foe.